To jest Fabian z FunMiles, który odpowiada za program lojalnościowy. Hi Fabian, take your seat. So the short introduction I made was about that acquisition of a new client is much more expensive than keeping one with you. So what your business does is to keep the client you already acquired, right?
Exactly. We are an open loyalty platform. Essentially, we look back at 30 years of loyalty experience in the sectors of retail and airlines. I think we kind of all know the frequent flyer programs where you collect miles and get free tickets for it. And we try to apply this concept, which is mainly about having a customer dialogue that helps you to actually retain the customers you have won once. And coming back to Mediacom, this is the same for a game, an esports team, or a sponsor that is looking for these target groups. And so we're trying to build a network that kind of copies that into the market of esports and esports sponsoring specifically.
Okay, so you use the word copy, and that's actually what interesting, because we are trying to talk today about new opportunities. So what's special about your loyalty programs? What's extraordinary?
I mean, most of the frequent flyer programs and retail programs that we see around the world today, they have been introduced and built more than 25 years ago. So obviously, they lack a lot when you look at the technical concepts. Our Fan Miles, which is essentially the name of our company and also the name of our universal loyalty currency that you can collect across all the partners of in the future global network, pretty much can be collected by a user across partners, which means you can collect it, for example, with an esports team when you follow them, or when you go to a stadium in soccer, for example. We're already the leading sports network in Germany, where we work with Bundesliga soccer teams, reward customers and fans when they go into the stadium, and then they can get free tickets for it. And now we apply the same to esports, and our first partner was ESL, and the next one is going to be Kinguin. So the unique thing is that it's an open network. You can collect and redeem your fan miles for virtually anything. So the idea is you go to a retailer, collect fan miles, and spend it for in-game digital rewards or gifts. So you connect the offline world, which is kind of the world of the sponsors in a lot of times, because they're still looking, of course, to have brand image, but also to have a direct connection to the consumer and in the end sell and make revenues. So with a model like loyalty, which again, the model itself we copied, we just built it on a technical platform that is very open for everyone to join, that the users can actually connect the offline world with esports.
Okay, let's make a pause here, because you mentioned esport companies you are working with, and at the same time your business partners are sport clubs, Bundesliga clubs. So what's the difference from perspective of your product, working with an esport club and a sport club?
I guess if I look at the markets, the advantage of a soccer club when you introduce a loyalty program is they actually have a stadium, right? So they have a stadium, and some of them even might already have membership cards, and they essentially have more direct touch points. On the other hand, if I look at esports teams or esports partners like ESL, they directly have a global audience, which is a huge advantage when you try to then connect this to, for example, global collection partners like an airline. Whereas soccer teams are very local, especially when you look at Bundesliga teams or something like that. Maybe FC Bayern is global, but most of the other teams are very local. So I think the fundamental difference is that you directly appeal to a global audience when you are an esports team and when you play in the major leagues. And I think also when we look at the touch points that they're there to actually engage. Obviously, esports by nature is very digital. So the advantage is that you have a very digital target group that most of the time is already sitting in front of a computer, which makes it much simpler to bring them from A to B. If I have to get somebody out of a stadium to go to a retailer to actually buy something, that's very different than for a user that watches something on Twitch to click one click and directly purchase something right there. So I think that's also going into the talk before of I think there's a lot of opportunities for sponsors to actually engage esports fans much faster than in traditional sports. So I think that's a huge advantage of that industry.
Okay, so Fan Miles is a loyalty currency. It's actually something you may pay for things, you may buy something. So in fact, probably the blockchain revolution may affect your business somehow, or at least create new opportunities. How do you look at the blockchain revolution?
We find it fascinating. We already started exploring the entire area of blockchain, I think 2 years ago. We also thought about the implications for our own technical platform. We will probably migrate our platform to a blockchain-based system mid of next year. On the other side, we didn't have a direct business value mid of last year to actually introduce it. I think in the case of Kinguin, for example, you have direct utility from switching to a blockchain, right? You have issues with fraud when you have the different steps of it, whereas in our case, you get rewarded for your loyalty, and then, for example, you can use fan miles to simply, in the future, maybe get crowns and then do the in-game purchases within the entire Kinguin network and connect it that way. For ourselves, we will look at how this plays out, and then probably for the technical advantages of the blockchain, which is security and decentralization, maybe mid of 2018.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.